Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, may be peace upon all of us. Excellency, the Chairman of BKKBN, Bapak Dr. Honoris Causa Hasdoyo, Medical Doctor, Obgyn, Specialist and Consultant. Excellency, Mr. Fikes Maharaj, Charge d'Affaires et Interim of the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia. Excellency, Mr. Victor Joseph Sambuaga, Charge d'Affaires et Interim of the Embassy of Republic of Indonesia to South Africa in Pretoria, the Honorable Professor Rizal Martua Damanik, PhD, Deputy for Training, Research and Development of BKKBN Indonesia, Honorable Mr. Jacques van Sudam, Chief Director, Population and Development, Department of Social Development, South Africa. Distinguished dignitaries of BKKBN, both central and provincial offices, Ministry of State Secretariat of Republic of Indonesia, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Indonesia, Ministry of National Development Planning of Republic of Indonesia, University, Civil Society, Organization, Mass Media, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we would like to convey our gratitude to all of you for finding your time to visit this event. Allow me to welcome all of you to the event of Ambassador Talks today, our friendly talks with the Ambassador of South Africa to the Republic of Indonesia. My name is Ukik Kusuma Kurniawan. I'm the head of Center for International Training and Collaboration of the National Population and Family Planning Board of Republic of Indonesia, or BKKBN. And I will be the master of ceremony for this event. But before we start, we would like to check whether all participants could join virtually. Can you see or hear our voice from your place? If yes, would you please kindly give a thumbs up response like this? Yes? Okay, thank you very much. Great. Thank you for the feedback. If there is something trouble with the voice or noise, please let us know through the chat box. In case of any technical issues, please give me a signal to the chats and we will try to help you to resolve it quickly. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today's event, namely Ambassador Talk, a monthly event initiated by the Center for International Training and Collaboration of BKKBN, or Pulin, since the year 2021. The aim is to showcase and disseminate the Bangga Kencana program, stands for Pembangunan Keluarga, Kependudukan, and Keluarga Berencana, or Family Development, Population, and Family Planning programs to our overseas counterparts and to explore potential collaboration between BKKBN, the government of Indonesia, with its foreign partners. Before we have opened the session to our moderator today, we have few housekeeping information regarding this sharing session. Firstly, today's webinar is also broadcasted live through YouTube. Secondly, participants could submit text question to our guest speaker through Slido link provided in the chat box. We will collect and address them during the Q&A session. Thirdly, please do not forget to put your name and your organizations and to whom your questions be addressed to. And fourthly, the link of attendance to get e-certificate and materials of this event will be shared at the end of the session. For those 4 best selected questions through Slido, will be given souvenir gifts from the committee later on. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, we would like to take a picture of all participants joined virtually in this webinar for our documentation reports. We would like to request all of you to kindly open up your camera screen and turn on your camera from your own laptop or computer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take a countdown from 3 to 1 action. Please be prepared, ladies and gentlemen. Please open up your camera from your laptop. Yes, we will take a photo session together. Now we have around 160 participants. So it should be around 5 maybe, yeah, 5 slot of photo taking. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, would you please be prepared? I will take a countdown. 3, 2, 1, action. Thank you for the first layer. For the second layer, please be prepared. 3, 2, 1, action. Thank you. For the third layer, please be prepared. 3, 2, 1, action. And the fourth layer, please be prepared. 3, 2, 1, action. And last slot photo taking, the fifth layer. 3, 2, 1, action. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Now, to begin with, we would like to request the honor to invite the chairman of the National Population and Family Planning Board of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Dr. Honoris Causa Hastowardoyo, Medical Doctor of Gene Specialist and Consultant, to give his welcoming remarks and officially open this event, which in this occasion will be represented by Professor Rizal Martua Damanik, PhD, Deputy Chair of BKKBN Indonesia. Bapak Profesor Rizal Martua Damanik, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Pak Oki. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, good morning to all of you. So, Honorable Ms. Fikes Maharaj, the charge the affairs and interim of the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia. Mr. Victor Joseph Sambuaga, charge the affairs and interim of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Pretoria. I also see Mr. Jax van Zidam, the Chief Director Populations and Development, Department of Social Development, South Africa, dignitaries of BKKBN, both central and provincial offices, Ministry, State, Secretariat of the Republic of Indonesia. Sorry, do I have to unmute this? It's okay. Okay. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia, universities, civil societies, organizations, mass media, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, let us thank Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the God Almighty, for his blessing and for allowing us to meet today in this event. First of all, I'd like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia and the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Pretoria and the Department of Social Development of South Africa for the participations and contribution to this knowledge sharing webinar. This is a glorious moment, and I wish to extend my warm welcome on behalf of the National Population and Family Planning Board of the Republic of Indonesia, or BKKBN, to this event, namely Ambassador Talk, to share policies, programs, and best practices between two countries in the field of populations, family planning, and family development. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, so human resources development is the main stay of the Indonesian's nation's development strategy in the future. The choice of the strategy is sought to accelerate the economic growth needed to improve people's welfare. The urgency of developing human resources is a key factor in winning global competitions, which has consequences for increasingly intense competition amidst uncertainty. These strategies move deserves the full support of all stakeholders, strengthening human resources towards superior human beings has a close relations with increasing work productivity in winning the competition amidst the rapid changes in the world of business, political economy, and culture. Today, Indonesia's population is starting to be dominated by the younger generations. This will reach its peak in the period 2025 to 2035 through the demographic bonus, where the number of productive age populations will be much larger than other age categories. Therefore, Indonesia must prepare this young generation to become a superior generations that will lead and bring progress to Indonesia in the future golden age. Indonesia has integrated population into economy and development strategies, accelerating the pace of sustainable development, poverty alleviations, and contributing to the achievement of population objectives and improved quality of life. Indonesia has launched a set of legal frameworks related to populations, reproductive health, and family planning, sustainable development, and sustain and inclusive economic growth. Under the Indonesian National Action Plan for Human Rights 2021 to 2025, the government places human rights at the center of national population development agenda, which focuses on women, children, persons with disabilities, and customary law community. The government also emphasizes the importance of concrete programs and policies that directly touch the regions and the community, including the women, child, and family-friendly villages programs as the epicenter of development that increase family welfare, health, and education. In 2021, under the Presidential Decree on Accelerations of Stunting Reduction Program, Indonesia furthered its commitment to reduce stunting rate by 14% by 2024 through improvement of reproductive health, reducing 3 zeros related to maternal mortality, unmet need for family planning, violence against women and girls, early marriage, and harmful practices. A set of integrated modalities on stunting reduction teams at community level have also been implemented to prevent stunting new cases, including to the youth. Ladies and gentlemen, Law number 52 of 2009 concerning population development and family development, it clearly illustrates the strategic role of the National Populations and Family Board, or BKKBN, in family development by being directly responsible to the President. BKKBN is the spearhead for formations of quality families from an early age. Through the Bangga Kencana, which stand for family development, populations, and family planning program, BKKBN strives to create quality families and balance population's growth in Indonesia so as to achieve and advance Indonesia. To achieve these conditions, each family member must understand and implement the function that should run in family life. The functions referred to are known as the 8 family functions. The 8 family functions are religious function, socio-cultural function, love functions, protection functions, reproduction functions, socializations, and education functions, economic functions, and environment development functions. In carrying out the family development policies, BKKBN conducts family resilience and welfare development activities so that it can support families to carry out family functions optimally. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, lastly, BKKBN stresses the need of global cooperation to address global issues such as populations and development issues. As demonstrated in our nomination for UN Population Awards 2022, Indonesia champions the issues of populations as one of the key drivers of development. In line with the South-South Triangular cooperations, BKKBN stands ready to advancing collaborations and sharing best practices among other countries. And furthermore, Indonesia presidencies in G20 last year addresses the theme of recover together, recover stronger, which aims to advancing a strong and inclusive global recovery that strengthens the achievement of the 2030 agenda, together emphasizing inclusivity and resilience. In closing, allow me to express my deep appreciations for the cooperation network to build between the BKKBN and Embassy of South Africa in Jakarta and Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Pretoria. May this knowledge sharing activity benefit both countries and become as a bridge for further cooperations. Finally, with this remark, I declare this event open and wish you all fruitful discussions. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Professor Rizal Martua Damanik, the Deputy Chair of BKKBN, for your remarks and officially open this event. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we are coming to this discussion session, which will be moderated by Ms. Karina Suryanata Miharja. She is the news presenter of CEA Today TV and radio broadcaster at KISS FM. To Ms. Karina, the floor is yours.
Dr. Uki, thank you so much for handing the floor to me to moderate this very interesting discussion. I'm very excited. And I also, once again, would like to greet everybody present today here with us in the room or virtually. Thank you so much. Once again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. His Excellency Chairperson of BKKBN, Bapak Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, MD Objen, who is currently present, hopefully virtually as well. And Mr. Vikesh Maharaj, the Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of South Africa to the Republic of Indonesia. Thank you so much for being with us today. And Bapak Victor Yosef Sambuaga, Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia to South Africa in Pretoria. Thank you for joining us so early in the morning. Of course, Mr. Jacques van Zudam also for joining us virtually all the way from South Africa, the Chief Director of Population and Development, Department of Social Development, all the way in South Africa. And Professor Rizal Damanik, Thank you so much for having me here, Deputy for Training, Research and Development, BKKBN, and dignitaries of BKKBN, both central and provincial offices, all the representatives of ministries from the Republic of Indonesia who are present with us today, distinguished guests from Indonesia and South Africa, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning from Indonesia. So before we begin, once again, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Karina Suryanata Miharja, and it is a pleasure and an honor to be present this morning to moderate a talk show with a topic so important where its outcome can literally change the future generations of both Indonesia and South Africa. And it is such a great pleasure as a mother of two and target market of such programs currently to listen in, learn as well, and hopefully share the good message both South Africa and Indonesia have, especially in empowering these women all over the two countries and families in the two countries to, to be able to live their best lives. And that is what the whole program is all about, to give opportunities to all families in both Indonesia and South Africa to find ways to make sure that the next generation gets to live the best lives. As we all understand, family development and planning is one of the national development issues with an emphasis on the importance of strengthening the family resilience. Now, protection and empowerment of the family as the smallest unit in society is the main target in family development. While family planning can build resilience through healthier and smaller families that can contribute to ending the cycle of crisis that cripples so many countries and perhaps contributing to the economies as well. Now, most importantly, family development and family planning is an effort to create a quality, resilient, and prosperous families who live in a healthy environment at every stage of life. Now, as I understand, South Africa currently holds the chairmanship of the Partners in Population and Development, the intergovernmental organization that is also focused on building family resilience. And South Africa thus has formulated a national policy focused on families with the intention to promote and support families, many of whom are currently facing very large financial and social pressures. And I'm looking forward to hear the policies and the programs that South Africa also has in their country in regards to supporting families there, as we will hear much further in our discussion. So as fellow developing nations, the process of creating resilient families, of course, still present various challenges, especially in building strong society through implementing plans of family development and family planning. And therefore today, with great excitement, we'll be hearing of implemented programs from both Indonesia and South Africa, sharing best practices, sharing knowledge and experiences to successfully proceed in the topic of today, building a strong society and family resilience through family planning and family development program and policy. And thus, to open our program today, I would like to welcome Professor Rizal Damanik, PhD, the Deputy for Training, Research and Development of National Population and Family Planning Board of the Republic of Indonesia, or locally known as BKKBN, to present on BKKBN's family planning, family development, and population programs and policies to start today's discussion. Pak Damanik, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karina, for giving the floor. So, once again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. May peace be upon us all. So, His Excellency, Chairperson of BKKBN, Dr. Passcode, the Honorable Mr. Maharaj, charge the affairs and in terms of the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia, Mr. Victor Joseph Sambuaga, charge the affairs and at interim of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in the Pretoria, Mr. Jas Van Zidam, Chief Director Populations and Development, Department of Social Development South Africa, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, So in these occasions, we deliver a presentation on the BKKBN's family planning, family development and population programs and policies. The outline of my presentations, first, I will talk about an overview of the population, family planning, and reproductive health in Indonesia. And then the second is the current BKKBN strategic plan, 2020 to 2024. And the third is about the family development and family resilience program and best practices. And we'll be close with the conclusion. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of family planning and reproductive health in the Indonesia. First of all, I'd like to share to South Africa on the populations and the family landmark in Indonesia. So there are four phases of our family planning landmark. The first phase was the pioneering periods, which was on 1950s to 1966. In this period, the existing law prohibited the spread of family planning ideas, and high mortality rate of infants and mothers has triggered medical and social workers to decrease the rate of mortality in one time to pursue way out, among others, by widening pregnancy interval through family planning. And the second phase was the involvement of government in the populations and the family planning program, which lasts from 1966 to 1970. With the initiations of new order in March 1966, population problem became a main focus of government concerns. And the government embarked upon its family planning commitment in 1967 with two main goals. First, to improve the health of citizens and to address rapid population growth and engender economic progress. And in October 17, 1968, the National Family Planning Institutions was established at that time still as the semi-institutions. And the third phase was the implementations of population and family program in a centralized systems. These periods last from 1970 to 2003. And during this period, it was marked by the formations of a National Family Planning Coordinating Board, or we call it as BKKBN, as a full government institutions. The political commitment was implemented by growing collective agreements from government and NGOs, as well as religious leaders. And the last is the fourth phase was the implementations of populations and family planning program in the decentralized system started from 2004 until today. Next slide, please. So in the context of Indonesia, carefully looking at the accomplishments of the government to avoid overpopulations, represented by national populations and family planning board steady reduction in total fertility rate, or TFR, was demonstrated significantly by half during 1967 and 1994. And the reduction was disrupted ever since until 2012 to be at 2.6, and later been slightly decreased to be at the 2.4 in 2017. And the positive trend of a declining TFR stays consistent, namely 2.1 children per woman in 2021. So this TFR trend appears to be consistent with the uptake of contraceptive use, as it is shown the relative pattern This figure convinces us that contraceptive use remains a major factor determining Indonesia's total fertility rate. The family planning program has successfully averted around 100 million births. Population projection in 1971 indicated that without the success of the family planning program, the number of populations in 2010 would be around 326 million people. But in fact, the total number of populations in 2010 was 237.6 million. Next slide, please. Due to continuous reductions in TFR, total fertility rates, the population age structure has been projected to change. And between 2015 and 2050, the pyramid will likely shift from a still relatively young population to one that is characterized by significant population aging, with the share of the populations above age 65 increasing from currently 5.4% to 16%, while the share of the population below age 15 will decrease from 28% to 19%. So the life expectancy will increase by 6.7 years old for 3.5 decades. Population growth will slow due to a decline in the TFR. One important strength of Indonesia's demographic compositions in 2015 is that the country has a young population. It implies the potentially large workforce, thus making it of vital importance that this workforce can be educated to obtain higher skills and can be absorbed by employment opportunities. With more and more people in the productive ages, it boosts national economic growth, national consumptions, and national saving. Family planning program is a key strategy with regards to the country's economic development, as a low population growth rate translates into a higher per capita gross domestic product, or GDP. This left Indonesia well positioned for its golden period for economic growth. Next slide, please. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, in this opportunity, I'd like to share with you BKKBN's current strategic plan for the year 2020 to 2024. Next slide, please. So before I share the national policy and the strategic directions of BKKBN, allow me to provide information on BKKBN to our partners from South Africa. So BKKBN, or National Population and Family Planning Board, is a governmental institution that focuses on 3 programs, namely family development, populations, and family planning. It aims to provide benefits to Indonesian families by realizing harmony, congruency, and balance between quantity, quality, and population distributions and living environment, as well as improving the quality of the family in order to arise a sense of peace and hope for a better future in attaining physical well-being and inner happiness. In 2019, BKKBN has set 7 national policy and strategies directions, which in general refer to the national policy directions and strategies. They are expounded in medium long-term development plan, or we call it as RPGMN 2020 to 2024, especially when translating the national policies to priority programs and priority activities that the President's mandated as the focus on Indonesia national development for period 2020 to 2024. Accordingly, BKKBN's policy direction and strategies are as follows. First, strengthening, aligning, and synchronizing population control policy. The second, increasing the advocacy and mobilizations of Bangga Kencana programs, taking into account regional and target segment characteristics. The third, strengthening an integrated family information system. The fourth, increasing family resilience and welfare in a holistic and integrated manner based on an individual's life cycle and to strengthen family-based character building. The fifth, increasing access and quality of comprehensive family planning and reproductive health services by regions and focusing on target segmentations. The sixth, improving quality of BKKBN workforce, increasing research, uptake, and innovations, and strengthening global partnerships of Bangga Kencana. And the seventh, improving the accountability of Bangga Kencana management to ensure that good governance is in place. For current Ambassador Trump, it is greatly correlated with our strategy on increasing family resilience and welfare in a holistic and integrated manner based on an individual's life cycle and to strengthen the family-based character building. Next slide, please. So, understanding the political reform interrelationship among layers of government institutions, how local government perceive family planning as their default authorities, and the fact that Indonesia could sustain PFR during 1.5 decades after the decentralizations. There are at least 4 major components explaining our struggle to maintain the program in this volatile environment, namely institutional arrangements, regulatory framework, funding scheme, and public service delivery frameworks. In terms of institutional arrangement, Central Family Planning Office still maintains the existence of its representative in all provinces except Jakarta. The representative offices perform coordination function to bridge triangular relationship among Central Family Planning Office, province, and district family planning offices. Indonesia is also known as a country having strong grassroots resources. The amendment of regional autonomy in 2014 gave a mandate to transfer family planning field workers being local government employees to be as a central employees directly under BKKBN Central Office. Currently, central government deliberately recovered their technical competencies by providing massive trainings. We also have 10,000 known government family planning field workers. They are recruited by the local government to compensate insufficient numbers of family planning field workers. As we understand that the volunteer cadres play important roles in family planning and reproductive health in Indonesia, and we engage community as volunteers which work closely together with family planning field workers. There are around 1.2 million voluntary cadres working closely with us in the field line. And with regards to regulatory framework, population, family planning, and family development is acknowledged in the National Medium-Term Development Plan 2020 to 2024, as discussed earlier, in which this document will be a reference for local government development plan. To make sure that local government puts their commitment and appropriate resources for the program, Ministry of Home Affairs, managing the authority of local governments, has published supported regulations. to sustain and to have a convergent activities between central and local governments. We also have Indonesia budget transfer to local government through specific allocation fund scheme to support behavior change communications initiative and family planning services. Through Kampung KB project or quality family village, our program also explores the opportunity to mobilizations village fund. The other compartment is public service delivery frameworks, in which we try to standardize the delivery of the program performed by local government. So here we are responsible to also provide contraceptive to all eligible couples under or outside national health insurance program. And every 5 years, we conduct family census that due to COVID outbreak this year, the census is postponed to be executed in 2021. Annually, the data is updated for the purposes of the program interventions. Next slide, please. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, in this next slide, I will share on the family development and family resilience program and best practices implemented by the BKKBN. Next slide, please. To build resilience and welfare among families in Indonesia, BKKBN embraces its program implementations according to the human life cycle approach. The stages are married couple, pregnancy, fetus, neonatal, infant, school-age child, adolescents, adult, and elderly. In this regards, BKKBN developed programs which targeted families. BKKBN also established PPKS or Prosperous Family Service at provincial, municipal, and district levels to provide counseling to families. Next slide, please. So, why BKKBN developed program targeted on family? So, the reason is that the family, it is the first and foremost environment in providing guidance for growth and development, in instilling moral values and forming personality. This is also because family, it is a place to imitate and emulate attitudes and behaviors that will shape their personality. The third, family, it is a place of learning for children to know themselves as social beings and the formations of conscience. And the fourth, of course, family is the first and foremost environment for children in adapting to the environment. Next slide, please. So the target of interventions of the family development activities aim to increase the ability of families in caring for and assisting children in the context of character building, to increase the ability of families in assisting adolescents' development and strengthening character, to improve the quality of vulnerable families through empowering vulnerable families, to increase the quality of life of the elderly through family assistance, and to increase family economic independence. With the intervention, it is expected that we could realizing a quality family that is independent, peaceful, and happy. Next slide. So this slide, I will share more on the family development and resilience program that BKKBN developed and implemented. The first is Bina Keluarga Balita, or Integrative Holistic Toddler Family Development Group. We say in Bahasa is BKB. The second is Bina Ketahanan Remaja, or BKR, is a Youth Family Development Resilience Group. The third is BKL, or Bina Keluarga Lansia, is Elderly and Vulnerable Family Development. And the fourth is UPPKA, Unit Peningkatan Pendapatan Keluarga Acceptor, or Acceptor Family Income Increase Unit Group. So I'd like to talk about the Integrative Holistic Toddler Family Development Group, or BKB. It is a community group activities of family who have toddlers aimed at increasing the knowledge and skills of parents, fathers and mothers, and other family members to care for and foster the growth and development of children through physical, mental, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, social, and moral stimulation activities to realize quality human resources in the context of forming and strengthening character from an early stage, an early age. Next slide. So, second group is about Youth Family Development Resilience, or BKR. It is a community group activities of family who have adolescents aimed at increasing the knowledge and skills of parents and other family members to foster adolescents through effective communication between parents and adolescents. While Young Counseling Information Center, or Youth PIK, is a youth activity forums aims to increasing youth knowledge and skill to foster youth through effective communications. And the purpose is to prevent them from marry early, premarital sex or free sex, and also drug abuse. Next slide, please. Next is about the Elderly Family Development, or BPL. So Elderly Family Development is one of the BKKBN programs in the community. Is an activity group consisting of community members or families who have elderly people living with them. And the activity group was formed with the aim of increasing the knowledge and skills of family members who live with the elderly so that the family can create a strong and independent elderly. BKKBN has also made several guidebooks on how to form independent elderly people. And we have also established elderly school, which integrated with the BKL as a place for elderly people to learn, gain knowledge, and create empowerment life in an old age. Next slide, please, is about the Acceptor Family Income Increase Unit Group, or UPPKA. It is a community group activities to boost the economy of the families. The members are family planning acceptors who interact with each other in order to improve the family income through a small business to realize a family economic independence. Next slide, please. BKKBN also established a service center for families. This is one of the government efforts in facilitating the community in the form of providing informations and education communications, counseling, and referrals in family problems, free of charge and institutions based. Next slide. So this slide shows us about the 8 services at the PPKS that provide to the society. The first is about the service data for and informations, and then consultations and counseling family with toddler and children, teen itself, consultations and counseling pre-marriage couple, consultations and counseling about the family planning and reproductive health, and then about the harmonious family, and consultations and counseling family with the elderly and elderly itself, and also the empowerment of family economy. So next slides. So ladies and gentlemen, before I end my presentations, allow me to take the floor to inform BKKBN's role in South-South Triangular Cooperation Framework. So to continue promoting South-South cooperations, currently BKKBN developed 8 thematic trainings in 9 selected provinces as our knowledge hub. First, about the Quality Family Project in Yogyakarta and Bali. And second is about the supply chain management in South Sulawesi Province and Central Java. The third is about the adolescent reproductive health in West Java and South Sulawesi. The fourth, engaging Muslim religious leader in family planning program is in East Java Province. And the fifth, about the micro data management, a family survey in Jakarta and Central Java. And the sixth is about the postpartum family planning program, which is located in East Java and South Sulawesi provinces. And the seventh, comprehensive family planning service training in University of Indonesia Hospital in Jakarta and Sarjito Hospital in West Java and in Yogyakarta. And the eighth is about the family planning and healthcare services in health crisis due to disasters, which is located in West Nusa Tenggara province. And in this regard, we are welcoming South Africa to visit the knowledge hub in our 8 provinces. So, honorable ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, I'd like to inform that on the 15th to 18 March this year, BKKBN, with the support from the local government of South Sumatra, will conduct event of ambassador goes to This activity is to accommodate ambassadors and international organizations in Jakarta to see the program implemented at the village. And the diplomatic missions will be shown various activities, the fields such as the population data, houses, fostering a family of toddlers, fostering families of teenagers, building elderly families program, Passcode, it is about healthy kitchens, and others, including stunting reductions and real-life data monitoring and gathering through mobile applications. So we will send formal invitations, and we highly expected that the Embassy of South Africa to join. That's all for my presentations. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pada Manik, thank you so much for the opening keynote speech discussion, and that is the programs from BKKBN, which I find very, very interesting. Also, as a woman in Indonesia, I find this very interesting and very empowering too. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, because you are giving families in rural areas access to information that is so easily accessible to us here in urban areas. And for the efforts, it's amazing, because we've heard people working are volunteers. And that is definitely a challenge to manage. And I love to see the pictures. And Ambassador, I hope this is an enticing invitation, an enticing excuse to see more of Indonesia as well, to be able to join the program. And the family approach certainly is very relevant to the family cultures here in Indonesia. And next, we would like to know more about our counterparts, South Africa, and to present a keynote on population, family development, and resilience policy in South Africa. We'd like to welcome Mr. Vikesh Maharaj, Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of South Africa, to the Republic of Indonesia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. His Excellency Chairperson of BKKBN, Dr. Hastawadayo, who's joining us virtually, I believe, Professor Dominic, Deputy for Training, my counterpart, Mr. Victor Sambua, His Excellency Charge d'Affaires in the Republic of South Africa. I'm grateful for making the time early in the morning. Mr. Jacques van Beiden, also the Chief Director and the Department of Social Development in South Africa. Our dignitaries, both from the central and provincial offices of BKKBN. Our moderator, Ms. Karina, Mr. Ukik, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to share thoughts on South Africa's family planning on this very important topic. Professor, I'm very impressed with the programs, and congratulations on the programs that Indonesia has embarked on regarding family planning. But Ms. Karina, I hear you when you say we have to learn about these things, and we also have to learn. I am very conscious that we are speaking of family planning and family development and reproductive health, but it's a very all-male panel that's discussing these issues. Yes, you are. But I also, these are one of the many obstacles that we face in many countries where there is not a more inclusive voices in these events. And for us in South Africa, it's important. Diversity and diverse opinions are the hallmarks of our policy development, are the hallmarks of our programs that we have. In South Africa, our family planning programs arose from controversial apartheid history. And this history is one of the many obstacles to proper family planning in our country. It's unfortunate that when we came out of apartheid in 1994 and 1996, when we adopted our new constitution, the Democratic Republic of South Africa adopted a bold and visionary constitution, as we all still speak about this new constitution, which remains the cornerstone of our democracy to this day. We broke from its turbulent history of apartheid and colonialism, in which human rights which were undermined and trampled, and now we've adopted a clear and progressive plan for the future, just as you've mentioned in human rights being the cornerstone of your family planning in Indonesia as well. But the present day realities faced by our countries are inextricably linked to this resilience or resultant history, which includes in the area of family planning and family development. In South Africa, family planning programs arose from this controversial apartheid history of controlling the African population while encouraging the growth of the European migrant population. Post-apartheid population policies shifted away from population control to aligning policies to the global agenda that placed emphasis on the link between population and development. The focus of population development policies in post-apartheid South Africa thus began on social equality, justice, and peace, rather than controlling sections of the population, one in which the rights of all citizens, irrespective of race, gender, creed, sexual orientation, or any other external factors, could be assured that their rights were enshrined and protected. Because of this grounding in our constitution and taking cognizance of our history, the South African government takes, again, a very rights-based approach in issues of family planning. Given the shift, our primary objective is to understand the dynamics surrounding access to and use of family planning services, especially in peri-urban and rural areas. Many studies conducted in South Africa suggest that different societal categories interact with family planning programs differently. In South Africa, the democratic government also shifted its conceptualization of family planning from population control to redressing the past neglect and various human rights violations. Therefore, the Department of Social Development became concerned with population and development issues, while the Department of Health focused on general health matters, including sexual reproduction. Aligning family planning to the global development agenda was also aimed at the progressive agenda for social equality, justice, development, peace, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, targets on gender equity and sexual production. Indeed, the success or failure of societal interventions in the family is not within the space of policy, but in implementation. It hinges on the work of departments and agencies being able to adequately fulfill their obligations and responsibilities. Therefore, it's a joint responsibility as a community. Again, when I refer to the history of our country and the extent to which apartheid wreaked havoc on the families, you would find many fathers were absent due to having to be part of migrant labor forces. In this regard, South Africa's entrenched circular labor migration intensified the phenomenon of family structures and roles being in a flux. These disruptions meant that biological parents, especially fathers, were not living with dependent children in the same household on a daily basis. Naturally, this had additional impact on women in families who had to take on additional roles and responsibilities within the family context. Much the same remains to this day, actually, as in the case in many instances around the world. Women are not only childbearers, but they are also the primary caregivers of the child, the sick, the aged, and people with disabilities. Women's health, including their access to reproductive health, is therefore much more important. It is for this reason that family planning services should be a national priority to support the women and the many roles they juggle, often with limited resources. South Africa strives to ensure that all citizens have access to the safe and voluntary reproductive health services, family planning resources as required for them to plan the size of families which they desire. They can provide for and afford. They also have the choice to have or not to have children, and to adequately space their births so as to give the children greater and sufficient access to resources both as childcare and education. Understanding this, all of this is ultimately in service of health and optimal functioning of families. However, we must also consider another, albeit less discussed approach to population and family planning, that is a critical synthesis of cultural, social, political, and economic factors that mediate or interact in specific ways with the broader society, its institutions, and power structures. This will contribute to our understanding of how people in especially peri-urban and rural areas conceptualize and perceive family planning and contraceptive use, as well as access to reproductive health services. In any family planning and development perspective, a conceptual framework that lays emphasis on culture, identity, gender, and power is critical. The socio-cultural context shows how knowledge and practice about contraceptive use allied to specific cultural and ideological viewpoints. How teenagers and married women perceive the value of family planning differs. Gender differences regarding the use of different available contraceptives are also evident. The identification of socio-cultural factors and the political economy underlie the different attitudes towards contraceptive use in many countries, even as we grapple with the non-use of contraceptives despite the knowledge that these prevent pregnancies and can provide protection from sexually transmitted diseases. In South Africa, as I am sure in Indonesia as well, there is a very low uptake of contraceptive services in rural areas compared to urban areas. Government therefore introduces a new program of reproductive health in which it legitimized concerns of population control and reproductive health. In this way, population control is retained as a legitimate policy goal with respect to modernization of the country, while at the same time the concerns of reproductive health advocates are also addressed through the adoption of an informed choice agenda. Given questions of contraceptive cost-effectiveness, government also turned its attention to individual and cultural belief factors and gender issues to improve health and social well-being. Thus, approaches on population have shifted emphasis towards developmental issues. We must also recognize that education, especially with the cultural context, is important in developing family planning tools. In both our countries, cultural beliefs are important to contextualize our programs. However, we should also be wary to not use culture to excuse certain practices or beliefs. We should accept that the world is modernizing. There are new challenges we face that require new innovative solutions that are not necessarily a threat to our cultures. Families are a dynamic unit, not a fixed or stagnant unit. They are evolving, however slowly, as they respond and are shaped by environmental changes, historical developments, as well as unpredictable major events like a global pandemic. All of these test the resilience of the family. We need to look at the last 2 years to note how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected families in this regard. Unlike the developed world that faces diminishing population growth, our developed countries, and especially Indonesia, has population dividend compared to South Africa. Therefore, family planning and development requires resilience. Recent economic growth rates have slowed, underscoring the need for new strategies. Persistent high rates of population growth threaten to undermine future economic growth, as well as other societal and development achievements. In addition, more than 335 million people live in poverty, and many are left out of the social progress. Family planning helps you to have the size of family that you can afford. Smaller families will also impact positively on our nation's social and economic development. Access to safe, voluntary family planning is therefore a human right and a key factor in reducing poverty. We therefore want to ensure that all residents of our countries and nations have access to formal family planning resources. According to the World Health Organization, benefits of better family planning policies are preventing pregnancy-related health risks to women, reducing infant mortality, helping to prevent the spread of sexually transmitted diseases, empowering people and enhancing education. And family planning here enables people to make informed choices about their sexual reproductive health, reducing adolescent pregnancies, slowing population growth. Family planning is a key to slowing unsustainable population growth and the resulting negative impacts of economy, environment, and national and regional development. Our populations will therefore be positively impacted when we use family planning resources and we think about the benefits of smaller families. At times, religion, culture, and economic factors influence couples when deciding on the size of family. It has been proven that the smaller family the unit, the greater the benefits. In many developing countries, studies have highlighted the need to address communication and knowledge gaps about the female reproductive system, different contraceptive methods, and how contraception works to prevent a pregnancy. Women's poor levels of knowledge of their reproductive system and contraception and family planning were linked to poor or absent communications and counseling provided by healthcare professionals. Therefore, I would suggest person-centered counseling and a dynamic communication strategy that can help bridge the vast knowledge and communication gaps between users and providers of contraception and family planning services. In conclusion, the South African government is committed to strengthening its family planning programs, service delivery, and policy. The government pledged to prioritize and strengthen its family planning services while emphasizing the due protection that I spoke about earlier, and develop standard operating procedures for community health workers to best promote family planning. In addition, South Africa is committed to implementing a school health program to provide information on reproductive health rights to girls. Policy and program efforts need to build on the strength of families and address challenges to ensure that families are empowered to use their capabilities to address diversities. In this respect, I'm confident that the collaboration between Indonesia and South Africa in these various aspects will assist us, as we've seen in the programs earlier, that we have very much a similar trajectory in ensuring that we develop standards operating procedures for family planning and resource management. In that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maharaj, for this eye-opening view of, it's basically the overview before we hear the details from Mr. Jacques van Zeerdam shortly. I just, before that, wanted to say thank you for mentioning that diversity is very important, because this is a room of gentlemen speaking about the opportunities of women, ladies. it may look like one thing, but I do really want to appreciate the fact that this discussion shows just how important women's roles are in deciding families, and families contribute to society. So this little discussion we're having, sharing knowledge in between two developing nations, which I underline has a lot of similar challenges in different ways. And therefore, I would like to welcome Mr. Jacques van Zuidam, the Chief Director of Population and Development Department and of Social Development, to present about the program in South Africa. Mr. Jacques, hi. Thank you for joining us from South Africa. The floor is yours. You have around 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina. Good morning, and let me also recognize Dr. Wardoyo and Charged Affairs, my fellow colleague in government, Mr. Maharaj, Indonesia's charge in Pretoria, Mr. Sambuaga, as well as my long-standing friend and colleague, Professor Damanik. And I think, let me first of all thank Professor Damanik for really a very insightful presentation. We will certainly share it with all our colleagues here in South Africa to gain further insight in the quite comprehensive program in Indonesia. And then also thank you very much, Mr. Maharaj, for providing such a thorough overview of the history, the principles, the history we are trying to address through our population and family policies in the country, as well as the principles on which such programs need to be based. I think I'm going to structure my input in two parts. The one is just brief reference to the South African population policy, which was adopted as a white paper in our parliament in 1998. So the policy is 25 years old now. In the country, we have a national population unit, which is where I am working, that is responsible for promoting the population policy as well as monitoring progress with the implementation. And then in the second part, I'll just say a few things about the family policy that is administered by the Department of Social Development, which, as Mr. Maharaj has indicated, is the department which hosts the country's national population unit. Now, our population policy promotes a set of 24 strategies in order to contribute to the achievement of sustainable human development within the framework of our National Development Plan. Within that policy, there are specifically 4 strategies that relate to the discussion today. And these strategies are outlined in the policy under the heading Gender, Women, Youth and Children. The first leg of it is the reduction of the high incidence of crime and violence, and particularly violence against women and children. Secondly, the policy promotes responsible and healthy reproductive and sexual behavior among adolescents and the youth to reduce the incidence of high-risk teenage pregnancies, backstreet abortions, and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV/AIDS, through the provision of life skills, sexuality and gender sensitivity education, user-friendly health services, and opportunities for engaging in social and community life. Thirdly, the policy advocates and facilitates measures to be taken in order to enable women and girls to achieve their full potential through the elimination of all forms of discrimination and disparities based on gender, the more effective implementation of laws that protects women's rights and privileges, and what has to go hand in hand with that is increasing women's representation in decision-making through affirmative action at all levels. And then finally, under the same heading, the promotion of equal participation of men and women in all areas of family and household responsibilities, including responsible parenthood, reproductive health, child rearing, and household work. So that's the broad framework that our population policy laid out, and within which our country's family policy has been contextualized. Presently, we are reviewing and finalizing an update on our family policy of 10 years ago. And therefore, I'll highlight elements that have been, introduced and are being prioritized within this. The family policy seeks to provide guidelines and strategies for the strengthening of families in South Africa and the realization of their well-being, as well as the strengthening of communities as the support network for families. The policy seeks to change the unfavorable conditions affecting families and communities, some of which Mr. Maharaj has alluded to. The policy is founded on the principles that Mr. Maharaj outlined, and I think it's important to just emphasize the recognition of the diversity of family forms, as is also articulated in the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development of 1994. Mr. Maharaj has made reference to the religious, linguistic, cultural, and other diversities that need to be recognized in the work of government, and also the individual rights that should not be compromised and in fact should be promoted through family policy, which includes the rights of women, which includes the right to access abortion without hindrance, the rights of children, the rights of persons with disabilities, and all of these, of course, free from discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The conditions that the historical conditions that affect families in South Africa and communities in South Africa have been shaped by both historical and contemporary forces which continue to impinge upon families. The conditions that prevail in some communities, coupled with extreme poverty, the lack of family support networks, inadequate resources and services, impact severely on families. Each of these factors need to be grasped and understood by all stakeholders that are concerned with the welfare of families and communities, so as to arrive at strategies that address the plight of families in its totality. Important to mention is that the government and non-governmental organizations, communities, families, and individuals alike are framed as participants in raising the quality of life of South African families through the creation of an enabling environment that is advocated by the family policy. Non-profit organizations, and particularly welfare organizations, provide the bulk of welfare services in the country, many of them, of course, funded by the South African government, and therefore the relationship between the government and the non-governmental sector has to be as strong as possible for family policy to succeed. The family policy seeks to address the following range of issues, and I'll go through them systematically because I think they're all important to understand and recognize in order to understand South Africa's family policy. The first is that we still experience an unequal distribution of caregiving work between men and women, including within the context of the family, and that obviously needs to address. We do still experience a very high rate of absent fathers, which, as Mr. Maharaj has indicated, is a legacy of the migrant labor system of apartheid, which basically only allowed working working individuals from the vast majority of South Africa's population, the Black population groups, to settle and work in urban areas, and women were only allowed to join their male partners or husbands in urban areas if they also had employment within those areas. So that legacy is still there, which translates in our rural populations being more female and our urban populations being more male. And obviously that has great impacts on family life in the country. We also actively promote alternative and non-violent methods of discipline, which is quite important to mention, because we have had a legacy of, beating children, when they are deemed to be naughty by their parents as well as by school teachers, etc. And we're trying to eradicate that. The issue of teenage parents is critically important. We have a fairly high teenage pregnancy rate in the country. And again, what's introduced as an emphasis is the role of teenage fathers, because what tends to happen is the teenage mother ends up with a baby and the father moves away, to enjoy the rest of his youth. We do have high rates of divorce in the country. And of course, whilst the family policy cannot seek to reduce people's access to the right to divorce, at the same time, one needs to holistically look, at the challenges brought about by high divorce rates, especially, when it affects, a family that is made up of more than just the married couple. We are working on and seeking to find ways of also introducing paternity leave in a meaningful way in order to involve fathers more in, the early life of their babies. We also are promoting a family-centered development approach, which is basically saying, well, when one seeks to develop, one needs to also consider what are the implications for families. And again, that is against the backdrop of the fact that economic and industrial development strategies of our apartheid government was really a major contributor to the breakup of families in the past. In family policy, we seek to actively mainstream the rights of lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex individuals in a way that they are such individuals are recognized equally, when it comes to the right to form families as well as access family services. We promote, where possible, the non-institutional care of vulnerable family members in order to preserve families. So we seek to capacitate families to continue accommodating vulnerable members of the families, for example, children with disabilities. We also seek to strengthen marital unions and inter- and intra-family relationships in order to build stronger families. Reference has been made to the impact of COVID, and COVID has obviously impacted on families in South Africa in the sense that many family members have passed away and left the others behind. And then, of course, programs to strengthen parental rights and parental responsibilities. So those are the dozen odd issues that our family policy seeks to address. The policy is based on three broad strategies. First of all, to promote a healthy family life, which includes access to sexual and reproductive health and rights-based services for all family members, and particularly the unhindered access to such services for women, and such services to be delivered in an empowering way and not in a controlling way, as what was experienced in the period of population control under the apartheid government. The second broad strategy is obviously to strengthen families. And then the third broad strategy is aimed at family preservation, again, without impinging on the rights that individuals enjoy within our society. So if I can just highlight in the little time that is left, three major programs and services of the policy. And what we'll do is with the organizer, we'll share the full presentation so that it can be shared onwards with all participants. But the three important elements that I thought would be worthwhile sharing is we have within our family policy what's referred to as a fatherhood strategy. And that is aimed at reviving and promoting the role of fathers within families, because parenting is the role of both parents. As has been indicated earlier by myself as well as by Mr. Maharaj, is South Africa rate of children who grow up in fatherless families. And this poses numerous challenges to the socialization process, the education, etc. of children. So the strategy aims at both addressing the structural factors that might contribute to removing fathers from the families in which their children are, but also the social cultural factors that were brought about as part of the legacy of apartheid in our country. The second element that we regard as important is a program to explore the challenges around teenage parenting because of the high teenage pregnancy rate in the country, and to support systems and provide the kind of support that social workers can render to teenage parents to enable them to be effective parents. What we find very interestingly is that whilst the access to abortion services and the right to terminate a pregnancy is relatively available because it is protected by law in urban areas. In many rural areas, young people often struggle to actually access the service on time because of the distance that has to be covered, towards service points. But the other interesting part is that many teenage girls who fall pregnant choose not to terminate the pregnancy and to have the baby, and therefore one does see the formation of families that include teenage mothers, and ideally, both the mother and father should be part of the family. So we have a program that's primarily sort of based in the profession of social work to assist teenagers in the parenting role that they chose to take on. And then finally, which I think is a universal issue for all parents around the world, is programs to support parents in the parenting of teenagers, which is basically a program that was designed to assist parents of teenagers to better understand the dynamics of the adolescent stage. The main aim is to improve communication between parents and teenagers, because the lack of such communication has the potential of breaking up relationships within families, and a better understanding of the adolescent stage of young people could assist both teenagers and parents in preventing negative external influences, and to provide proper guidance to young people and teenagers, including, to promote and improve communication on matters of sexual and reproductive health and rights with teenagers. I'll stop right there, Chairperson, and obviously if there's time for discussion, we'll be ready to answer questions as well. And again, just to thank you very much for the opportunity to share a little bit of our country's experience, as well as to maybe conclude with supporting the suggestion that we should seek to deepen the exchange of experiences and programs between our two countries, because of the many social, cultural, and historical similarities that have contributed towards shaping our countries into the way that they are right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zuidam. Thank you so much, all the way from South Africa. And I just wanted to highlight one thing. Thank you for the fatherhood strategy. It is very interesting as times progress and women seem to be, as Mr. Maharaj mentioned before, taking up more roles. And I really appreciate that, fighting for paternity leave, which our government is also looking into right now. And there are a lot of similarities that I see. Strengthening communities equals to decentralization programs, human rights approaches, and really the family approach to looking at family as the first unit and first base of education for the future society. So I just, without further ado, would like to welcome Bapak Victor Joseph Sambuaga, Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Pretoria, South Africa, to the Republic of South Africa. Hello, Pak Victor.
Hello.
We can hear
Hello,
you.
good morning.
I hope you will be, wait, we're looking for your video and you will be with us in just a minute. There you are. Hello, Pak Victor. Thank you for joining us so early
Hello.
in the morning. And we look forward to
Good morning.
hearing from you now, finally, collaboration opportunities between these two institutions in Indonesia and, of course, in South Africa. What is your take on this? The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Manager. Very good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please allow me to extend my gratitude to be invited here on the occasion of the Ambassador Talks held by our respective office of the National Population and Planning Board, or often shortened as in Bahasa as BKKBN. Before I proceed with my brief notes, let me also convey my warm greetings to the respective office of BKKBN led by Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, Chairman of the National Population and Planning Board. I also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Rijal Damanik, Deputy for Training, Research and Development of BKKBN, and also the organizing committee led by the head of the Center for International Training and Collaboration, Dr. Uki Kusuma Kurniawan, who's under his direction. I believe this amazing event shall be convened well. And as I have been informed, attended this RIKA in Jakarta, my dear colleague Vikas Maharaj serves as his Zasedi Affair and presents now as their representative. That I've just got a very, very good message that's been delivered by Mr. Vikas. And from the Embassy of Republic of Indonesia in Pretoria, our sincere and warm regards also goes to Mr. Jacques Van Zuidam, the Chief Director of Population and Development, Department of Social Development of South Africa. Goeiemorgen, meneer Zuidam. Last but not least, also to our moderator, Ms. Karina, who's under her guidance. Of course, the discussion, I believe, will be guided to harvesting a very fruitful end. Ladies and gentlemen, history records a long path that has been established between the two countries, South Africa and Indonesia. Even long before it was even created it begins with the arrival of Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam, or we known as Tuan Guru from the Tidore, and Sheikh Yusuf Al-Makassari from South Sulawesi to the peninsula of South Africa, the city that we all know as Cape Town now. Not to mention also one prominent person, Pangeran Cakraningrat of Madura in the eastern Java. These three figures have then struggled in society to fight colonialism by empowering people through education, while at the same time spreading also Islam to South Africa since a long time ago. As Indonesians, we still remember also how Moses Kotane and Ismail Ahmed Kachalia, the two activists from South Africa, has been struggling and smuggling themselves to attend the Asia Africa Conference in Bandung in 1955, which the modern era has also witnessed how top figure like Nelson Mandela also colored the relationship between the two countries by popularizing Batik to the stage of the world. He first received the gift from our previous President Suharto in early 1990s. And if you ask the South Africans, maybe most of them knows that it is famous and called as the Madiba shirt. It's a lovely calling for the Nelson Mandela. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I will not repeat all the information that has been elaborated well by all previous speakers. I just want to say that the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia welcomes the initiative established by BKKBN, as it shall be the first engagement of the related issues of the two countries' population and family planning organization. As we know that many countries in the world, especially those still in the status of development, face the situation of population and family planning, including South Africa and Indonesia. These are the two keys of having a solid and healthy community, which is the basis of a strong and prosperous nations. Based on the last census of 2022, South Africa recorded the number of around 60.6 million people, while the Indonesian records is 270.2 million, according to the previous census of 2020. These figures shows that two countries' primary concerns on the population issues might be different, not to mention also the issues of geographic situation, which is, we all know that Indonesia is the archipelagic country, while South Africa lay in the southern part of the African continent, which also one way or another will influence how the population and spread of people in each country. To our dear colleagues in BKKBN, it is also our shared intention to echo the mandate that has been conveyed by our President Joko Widodo on 25th of January, just now, regarding our combat to reduce the number of stunting cases in Indonesia. And this is precisely in line with the task of BKKBN, one of which is focusing on the quality of family and aiming the qualified and advanced human resources. Again, as I mentioned before, is the basis or key to having a solid and prosperous nation. In this case, President Joko Widodo started that the number of stunting cases decreased from 37% in 2014 to 21.6% by 2022. Indonesia also aims to reduce the number of stunting cases by 14% in the next year, as mentioned before. I think it was mentioned by Dr. Rizal Damanik in his presentation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of population and stunting is a global challenge, especially for developing countries like Indonesia and South Africa. Addressing the problems take enormous effort to close cooperation. This action and collaboration can be started like we have today, that creating a small steps, of course, first by sharing knowledge, and then the second is by sharing experience. And why not, if shortly, based on this very brief initiative, we may have exchange of experts from two countries, so by which we can work together to enhance a better future for each country's people. The Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia is very enthusiastic and welcoming initiative from BKKBN to start this little step with its counterpart in South Africa through discussions and the possibilities in the future cooperation among the two countries related bodies or agencies. Of course, we will support through our information and culture, social and cultural affairs of the embassy, any upcoming program from BKKBN to the counterpart in South Africa. It is suggested that such cooperation should, of course, we should start maybe with some memorandum of understanding or MOU, and later on with the concrete or with the real plan of action to be implemented. We also hope that the bilateral cooperation should be implemented not only in the level of policy making or the level of policy, but also in technical level, because the outcome or the result should be seen through that technical levels. We believe that sharing of knowledge and experience, as we've done now, we are doing now, as well also as the exchange of experts, and maybe also to some fields visits and doing the research from both sides, will contribute in the effort of overcoming the issues of population and stunting in both countries. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that I will not be able to witness this wonderful event to be concluded, as I have also another activities or program to be attended shortly. I think this program is like 15 or 20 minutes late to be started, so they said I have to hurry up after this to attend another program. However, I will ask my colleagues also to leave our email address that can be contacted if there is any further questions, particularly related to the topics of this morning. I would like to thank BKKBN and our counterparts, the Embassy of the South Africa in Jakarta, for this opportunity to work together with us in building a strong society and family resilience through family planning and family development program and policy. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. I thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Victor, thank you so much for opening the door to future collaborations, and with Pak Maharaj here present with us as well. Hopefully, as mentioned before, future MOUs for implementable plans and training programs can be agreed upon, so the two countries can collaborate to actually create outcomes together. And therefore, I would like to proceed to our discussion Q&A session of today's talk show. because we've heard so much interesting perspectives, a lot of similarities, a lot of different focuses as well. And thank you to all the participants for submitting their questions via Slido. And some of the best questions, yeah, Pak Uki will receive souvenirs. And Pak Uki will be the one announcing, of course, the best questions later. But we're going to go to our questions instantly because we are running short of time. But first and foremost to Prof. Rizal. This is a question from Alek Rianto all the way from NTB, Nusa Tenggara Barat, West Nusa Tenggara. So how do we educate the bridegroom to be aware of stunting, especially those with lower education? And what differences of stunting and malnutrition is there that you can explain to us?
Okay, thank you, Karina. So as can see in the laptop, there is participants at the moment is about more than 270. So thanks, Pak Alek, from West Nusa Tenggara, how to educate the bride and groom. So to educate the bride and groom, right, it is important to spread the informations about stunting, especially what is stunting, the definition of stunting, and then the impact of stunting to the family futures, and how to prevent it through the to all medias. So nowadays the information technology is very advanced now. So we can start it from giving the brides in the premarital counseling through the religions affairs office, and also from the religious readers, and also family planning field workers and cadres, right? So like I mentioned this before, that we have also program that we call the genre and PIK, Pusat Informasi Keluarga, dan juga genre is generasi berencana, which can reach teenagers in formal and informal education, so we can inform them about the stunting. The second is the difference between the stunting and the kwashiorkor. So both are same things in under one category is nutritional problem or malnutrition. But the difference is that the stunting is the impaired growth and development that children experience from poor nutrition and repeated infections, and the inadequate physico-social stimulation. So children are defined as stunted if their height for ages is more than 2 standard deviations below the WHO child growth standards median. And on the other side, it's about kwashiorkor, also known as edematous malnutrition, because of the incidence is associated with the edema. Edema is fluid retention, is a nutritional disorder, most often seen in regions experiencing famine. It is a form of malnutrition caused by lack of protein in their diet.
Lack of protein in the diet.
Yeah.
Yes, this is actually a very interesting point. As a mother, my pediatrician has told me from the beginning that later when it's time to give food to your baby at 6 months, proteins is number one. Protein, and fats are number one for kids. And thank you also for explaining the accessibility of information and where to access information in different areas of Indonesia. And is the information also available online perhaps, so different areas can access it as well? Yes.
Yes, it's available on the website. Also, you can from the Pak Arif ya, Pak Arif can ask also the TPK, tim pendamping keluarga, right? In every village we have our field worker, the TPK, tim pendamping keluarga. This team is built to to conduct the reducing stunting in each village in Indonesia. They are the 3 officers of each team pendamping keluarga. First one is midwives, and second is PKK, the women's in the PKK organizations, and the third one is a fit worker from the BKKBN. So this team task is to socializing about the stunting, right, and then informing them, especially the groom and call it as a chatin, calon pengantin. So before they get married, right?
Yes.
Before they get married, this is a prospective bride and groom, right? Chatin, to inform about the importance of avoiding stunting.
Yeah. It's also very interesting to put into perspective, perhaps, to our South African counterparts, that in some regions in Indonesia, it is mandatory to go through certain health tests that is provided by the government, and also counseling to premarital couples. So you cannot get your marriage certificates unless you've gone through these tests and also counseling sessions. So to our honorable guest present today, Mr. Vikesh Maharaj, we also have a question here for you from Dedi. He is all the way in Maluku. He says, how would you measure a family's ability to manage the resources or needs of all family members in South Africa?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. It's a very difficult question under current economic circumstances. And I think that's why the discussion about family planning becomes an important aspect, because in any family, we always project towards the future. How do we provide for our children? How do we provide in later years for the family? I think the past 3 years, or the pandemic, has shown resilience of families, but it's also shown that governments and social programs needed to step up more to help families in distress. People were unable to be economically active. And I think in South Africa over the years, we've managed to create social programs for young mothers, for people with disabilities, for the elderly, in terms of grants and subsidies, lowering tax breaks, etc., for them to manage the portion of managing families. Also in South Africa, we do have counseling sessions. We do have not only counseling sessions for married couples or premarital couples on family relations, but on financial relations, which is extremely important, I think. Something that we often miss is when we talk about families and family relations, we talk about the family structure, we talk about contraceptives, we talk about everything that involves a family unit, except how do you manage finances. And I think that's an important aspect, pre-marriage, that we should discuss. And we have programs like that in South Africa. And when you sit down also to go as a family to the bank to get a loan, you have discussions. We have family financial advisors to help you to get not only a bank loan for your house, but also to look at future insurance policies, education policies that will help your kids in later life. So I think those are some of the interventions that the government and society makes in order for families to manage their financial resources. In the current climate, it's very difficult. So I hope people are using these resources. I know in South Africa, many families are using such resources provided by government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maharaj, for the perspective. And it's also certainly very interesting to see that both governments have so many different programs already in place to help various family issues. However, I think the challenges for both governments are in actually educating that these programs are available for families to use. And hopefully in the future that the easier the access to information means also the better the outcome in more efficient ways. We have one more question for Mr. Jacques van Zudam. And this is from Najla from Trisakti here in Jakarta. Najla is from the University of Trisakti. And her question is, how does South Africa improve the private sector of the family planning program? Because you've mentioned before that the collaboration between government institutions and non-government institutions are very important, including provision of modern contraceptive services.
Thank you very much for that question. And one can obviously discuss the whole day around it. Obviously the central pillar of family planning services, or as we refer to it, sexual and reproductive health services, is delivered through the health system. And fully integrated into the health system. So the objective of such services is primarily centered on the sexual and reproductive health of individuals. Such services are accessible and freely to all South Africans, so regardless of marital status. What we've also realized, and we've had a number of successive youth health programs and policies in order to, on the one hand, encourage young people to access such services, and on the other hand, of course, to also orientate health professionals into understanding that they should not discriminate when providing such services. But I think the more interesting part that I'd really like to elaborate is that the family planning service or the sexual and reproductive health service in the health facility does not stand on its own. It is horizontally integrated with care and support programs into which a variety of government departments participate at the local level. So it starts off with the integrated school health program, which includes the departments of health, education, as well as social development. It does, particularly for adolescents, start introducing them to what the services are that are available, etc., in order to contribute to addressing unplanned and unwanted teenage pregnancies. In a large way, what one has to do when engaging with family matters is not to wait until a family forms and then start educating the adults, who are forming and starting the family, because to a large extent, the knowledge, the values, etc., with which parents enter or adults enter into a family type of relationship, obviously has to have its foundation in the way that they have been raised and the way they grow up. Now, in our country, many of our indigenous knowledge systems were really decimated by colonialism and apartheid. And, we try to revive that indigenous knowledge because that is what is closest to people and what is valuable. But obviously, with an understanding that many practices were not there before colonialism and apartheid, and now people think this was our culture, but it was actually not our culture, prior to those interventions. Secondly, in order to be a healthy adult, one obviously has to grow up as a healthy child. A fundamental program that Mr. Maharaj has briefly referred to is our social security program, which includes a child support grant, which is not a lot of money, but it is enough money to provide a child who lives in a poor family or household to be well nutritioned and to, basically, together with the services in the health system, to be able to attend school in a dignified manner. And why I'm emphasizing that grant is because we have seen in the evaluation of the child support grants impact over the past 25 years that grant contributes, particularly for young women, to produce more confident adults, adults who are less likely to engage in risky behaviors, including less risky behaviors and so on. So in a way, one has to start when a baby is born by investing into that baby in order for that baby to become a good and responsible adult. In our basic education system, which is basically the 12 years of schooling, as well as the 2 or 3 years prior to school-going age of early childhood development. One of the pillars of the subjects that are being taught is a subject that is called life orientation, which starts in the first grade and it continues all the way through grade 12. Now, that life orientation subject is a compulsory subject for all school-going children to follow, so one cannot opt out of life orientation. It is presented in a different way from the academic subjects like the languages and mathematics and science and so on, in the sense that it doesn't have the examination pressures, that one just has to study, write the exam, pass it, and so on. And in fact, it does not in the final year of schooling even have an examination, but it has a continuous evaluation. Now, within the curriculum of the life orientation program, spread through the 12 years of schooling, is education about rights, the rights that individuals enjoy, the rights of children, as well as obviously hand in hand with those rights, the responsibilities. Secondly, there's a component of sexuality education, which in the coming year is going to be expanded into a more comprehensive sexuality education. And thirdly, that curriculum introduces school-going children to the services and the information that is available and accessible on a range of subjects, including, all the way from nutrition to a bit of personal finances, etc., etc. So in a way, what we foresee in addition to the programs that are there to support adults and parents is that investment in children with these values and knowledge that we want parents to have is a critically important part in raising a future generation of parents and adults who will form their families with a better understanding and knowledge of what's required to be a responsible parent and what are the rights that their children will be entitled to, that they have to contribute to, to promoting and protecting for those children. Thanks very much. I think that's broadly just to add to what was previously already added in this regard by Mr. Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zuidam. I mean, again, education is key. And thank you also for pointing out that education doesn't start when families are already formed or premarital, but as early as possible in different forms. And as somebody growing up in Indonesia, and if the future approaches of both countries is rights, as a woman myself, I feel like everyone or every child should have the right to be educated about what their bodies are capable of, what happens, how in different languages, but it is a right to know because they intentionally will make the decision. And when they are used to being educated, hopefully, as what, if I'm trying to conclude what Mr. Van Zuydam has mentioned, is hopefully to be able to keep the conversation open within the family so the children will be educated in the future as well. I mean, education is the number one issue. And with that, I would also like to conclude today's talk show. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having me. It is certainly a very big learning curve for me. I'm learning that even as a mom, I also have to take responsibility in opening up that conversation to the next generation, which will present its own challenges. So participants, thank you for staying with us and thank you for your questions. Pak Uki in just a minute is going to announce who the top or best questions are who are going to receive the souvenirs. And gentlemen, thank you also for joining us and are sharing your perspectives. And hopefully this discussion today will, will cater to new ideas of operation and new ideas of policy and programs that will definitely be implementable to change the future generations of both countries. Thank you very much to Pak Uki. The floor is back yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Karina. Applause to her. Thank you for moderating this session wonderfully. Thank you very much, Miss Karina. And this is a fruitful discussion and very interesting to share and exchange various settings and experiences on family development, population, and family planning program between two countries. The discussion is valuable for us to identify future collaborations. Question and answers session should also give us comprehensive situation that is context specific. Thank you again, Ibu Karina. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now that our webinar is coming to its end, we would like to convey our gratitude to our presenters and our guests of honors, Excellencies Bapak Dr. Honoris Causa Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, Medical Doctor Obgyn Specialist Consultant, Excellency Mr. Vikes Maharaj, Excellency Mr. Victor Joseph Sambuaga, Honorable Mr. Jacques Van Zuydam, Honorable Professor Rizal Martua Damanik, and of course our dear colleague, Madam Kathleen Homorosi from the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia. We not may have any further conclusion since the presentation and discussion are comprehensive, are crystal clear, as also synthesized by Ibu Karin. And to all participants, thank you for your participation. We hope that this presentation would be useful for everyone. Before we close this session, please allow me to announce 3 best questions posted by the audience. They will receive a souvenir gifts from the committee by post. Namely, number 1, congratulations to Mr. Alex Rianto from BKKBN West Nusa Tenggara in Mataram. Congratulations, Mr. Alex. Secondly, Mr. Dedi from BKKBN Maluku in Ambon. Congratulations, Mr. Dedi. And thirdly, Miss Najla from ITL Trisakti Jakarta. Congratulations. Yes, and this is the contact person. Please quickly, Mr. Alex, Mr. Dedi, and Miss Najla to note this contact person number so that we can reach you to contact you and request your postal address because the souvenir gifts will be posted, will be sent to you by post. Thank you very much. And lastly, the representative from both countries would like to exchange the gifts from the Deputy Chair of BKKBN, Professor Rizal Martua Damanik, to present a token appreciation to the charge d'affaires of the Embassy of South Africa to Indonesia and vice versa. From the Excellency Mr. Maharaj to present a gift to Professor Damanik. Would you please, Professor Damanik and Mr. Maharaj, to stand up and come to the stage? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Damanik and Ms. Maharaj. Please have seated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, soon after we close the session, before we invite you for a lunch reception, we would like to invite you, all of you, to have a photo session at the venue after this. Finally, as our appreciation for your participation, please grab your e-certificates by filling out the Google form with the link provided in the chat box. And we will see you in the next event. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please come forward to the stage to have a photo session together. Madam Kathleha Morosi, please. Bapak Ibu Pulin.
Sunny day in Cape Town.
Recording stopped.